Okay, so hello everyone. I am Electra Chrysanthou with Konstantinos Serimis. Hello, Konstantino.
Hello.
From the Cyprus Animation Association. This is an episode of a series of interviews with professionals and producers working in animation in Cyprus on the occasion of Cypriot projects participating in international festivals as well as pitching forums this year. Today, we're going to talk about two projects, Mesut, a 2D animated short, still in production, and The Makers, a TV series, also still in development. We have with us Michalis Kalopaidis. Hello, Michali. Producer and co-director of Mesut, as well as Alexia Roider, co-director as well as co-writer of Mesut. Hello, Alexia.
Hello, good morning.
Let's start with Mesut. Can you tell us a bit about the project and your involvement in it and where it sort of stands at the moment?
Alexia, shall I go?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Mesut is a 14-minute 2D animated film based on a true story. We decided that we wanted to do this film in order to showcase an aspect of the history of our island through this human-driven approach. And the film is based on a real-life character that I met in 2011, who I interviewed, a Turkish Cypriot man who, when he was a young boy, he moved to Nicosia and to learn a craft and make a living for himself. And because of the troubles in Cyprus, he had to be separated from his Greek Cypriot friends and was never able to fulfill his lifelong dream, which was to learn how to dance Zebekiko, this Greek solo dance. And he was able to fulfill his dream at the age of 72, just before he died away. He died. I was lucky to meet him a couple of years before he died and interview him. And I showed this interview to Alexia, who the moment she saw that interview, she said this will be a great stepping stone to do this as a film. So Alexia started working on a script along with the co-writer Georgia Nicolaou. We developed the script and then we submitted the project to a workshop that Annecy was doing at Anima Zeros, which was like a qualifying round for participating at MIFA, which is the largest and most important animation forum in the world. And we were part of the official selection at the pitching forum there, where we presented the film as an effort to try and bring on board co-producers from other European countries in order to not only help us complete the budget of the film, but to create a synergy in order to be able to have the capacity to create the film, but also exchange knowledge and expertise between local talent and professionals living and working abroad. So at the moment, the stage is that we're expecting to hear from the local cinema council here in Cyprus. We have an application pending. Hopefully we'll have some good news in the next month or so. And then after we have the national funding approved from Cyprus, we can then proceed with the applications in other countries in order to be able to complete the budget and go into production.
There's a lot of stuff happening.
Yes.
And we also mentioned another project which is still in development, and you also went on to pitch to receive funding for The Makers, which is a TV series, correct? What is that project about as well?
Correct. Yeah, the Makers, which is the current title, the original title was Get Making, under which it was submitted and selected Cartoon Forum and Cartoon 360 in 2020. It's again a project by Zedem Media, the animation studio that both Alexia and I are running here in Larnaca in Cyprus. The TV show, which is a 2D animated show, features a group of young teenagers that use their knowledge and expertise to solve challenges that come up in their local community. They're not superheroes. They use their strengths derives from their thirst of knowledge and their talents and their skills that relate to topics such as engineering, arts, mathematics, coding, and all of these skills. Modern skills are very important in contemporary society, as well as the soft skills that this group of teenagers showcase, like leadership and team building and critical thinking. And these are the values that this show aims to promote. Our goal is to inspire the next generation of innovators and community leaders through this series by portraying, these models to young people. I'm the show creator, meaning what that means is that I came up with the idea, and Alexia is the person who really worked hard to develop these characters in terms of their personality and so forth. And Alexia is our head of creative here at the studio, and she can talk more about that, and how she and Alexia is the person who supervised the creative team and worked with our artists and animators in order to develop also the look of both Mesut and
Yeah, I think both projects are very, very interesting and exciting in their own ways. They're very, very different.
Yeah.
On one side, you have Mesut, which is a real life story based on a character, and it's also a story that takes place over many decades. So the story starts in the early 1940s and goes all the way up to 2003. So it's very, very fascinating to write a script for that, for a short film. But it's also very exciting in the sense that animation is probably the only means that allows you to tell that story. It would have been impossible to do that with filming. So we use Mesut and Mesut's story and his dream to learn to dance the Zembekigo as the vehicle to travel back in time and also tell the story of Nicosia and of our country. And it's also a tribute to that generation of Cypriots, like, the genuine Cypriots that basically no longer exist. Mesut, like my grandfather, he doesn't exist anymore. And it's an opportunity for us, the younger generation who grew up in the Greek Cypriot part of the island, to explore a life that we ourselves, we don't know. We haven't had the chance to experience it. So we just have, the stories and archival footage and photographs. And as creators and artists, we're now facing the challenge to create this world so that we can view it and experience it, but also share it with the audience and with the younger generation. And I think that is very, very important, because there are a lot of important messages that come through this story and through Mesut's life. You know, many challenges that, you know, he faced, and also the positive aspect of how art unifies people and brings them together. Because growing up in this country, and a divided country, we just heard stories about the division. We just faced a wall and we never knew what's on the other side of that wall. We were taught about our conflicts and our differences. We didn't know what actually unites us and how life was before the division and before the war. So we feel an obligation, you know, as filmmakers and artists and animators, to tell a story about that. And I think it's going to inspire people, not just in Cyprus or the Greek world, but, you know, worldwide, because it's a story that affects and I think resonates in the hearts of people everywhere around the world.
Yeah, it's a human life story, and it sounds beautiful. I'm sure it will touch the hearts, even those who don't know about the Cypriot problem, as we call it.
Yes.
Yeah, and to be able to make the film relatable to people outside Cyprus, you know, the whole Cyprus problem, as we call it, is the backdrop. It's a human-driven story, but at the same time, I think both people in both communities in Cyprus, but I think also in the extended region, especially the East Mediterranean region, where there's a lot of conflict. You know, look at the Israel and Palestine issue and all these other similar situations across the world. It's important to remind people, you know, that the things that unite us are stronger than the things that divide us. And especially during, you know, the contemporary situation, the current socio-political situations where there's a lot of conflict, a lot of tension, and we just really need to take a step back and, you know, look at things from a different perspective. So we hope that this is going to be also a vehicle to inspire, you know, conversations and help with peace-building activities, and not just make it's not just a film. We hope that it's going to be, you know, more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask, in which language will the film be?
Yeah, we had a lot of discussions about that, because it's a very important aspect and part of the film. And of course, English is a universal language, and it would have been, you know, easier to do it in English. But we decided, because there is a narration throughout the film, so it's as if Mesut himself is narrating the story of his life. And because of that, we made the decision that the film will be in Greek. It will actually be in Cypriot. So it will be in Cypriot with the Turkish Cypriot dialect. Because that is very distinct and characteristic of Mesut, but also of, you know, all Turkish Cypriots like Mesut, who grew up in this country and who learned Cypriot. And it's also a language that is probably going extinct. So in a couple of years, it's probably not going to be spoken by many people. So I think that is very important, and it will give authenticity and value, not just for the character of Mesut, but for the film itself.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's excellent. That's yeah, it's good to remind people that, you know, people used to speak differently like a few years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, can I ask, yeah, can you tell us a bit more about Zedem Media, because that's where all the production is happening, where everything's happening. Can you tell us a bit more about the company itself?
Sure. Well, our studio was founded in 2008, so 12 years ago. It still is the longest running and currently the largest animation studio in Cyprus. We're 15 people, an in-house team of 15 people. We are most known for our work that we do for TED in the US. We've been working with TED for many years and on many projects. So we do a lot of work for the educational sector and also publicity videos. Most of our work is for clients outside Cyprus. About 70% of what we do is for the international market. And in the last 5 years, we started concentrating also on original content. We entered into a co-production agreement a few years back, where we helped a colleague, Maria Pavlou, to complete her own short film. It was called Dragon Recipes, where our studio is a co-producer on that project. We invested both money to cover expenses, but we also worked on the project and did about 30% of the animation. So that was like our first step into original content and short films. Then we continued with the Parrot Lady, which was 100% produced here at Zedem Media. It's a short animated film. It's still doing the festival tour. It was completed in February 2020. A very interesting festival tour, within the lockdowns and with COVID going on. So unlucky in some sense that, a lot of the festivals went online, but, the positive side is that we participated in a lot of Q&A sessions as part of the festival in many countries, something that was not going to be possible to do if only the physical editions were to take place. So that was an interesting festival tour. The Parrot Lady traveled to around 40 festivals, including 8 Oscar accredited festivals, which is huge considering it was our first film. So it certainly sets the bar quite high for the next for the next film. So yeah, no pressure, Alexia, there. And now we're other than Mesut and Get Making, we're also co-producers on another film, supporting another Cypriot filmmaker who lives in Greece, Yannis Christoforou, with his film Underground. Our studio, just like we did with Maria Pavlou a few years back, with Yannis, again, we're going to offer some pro bono services to help a fellow filmmaker to complete his dream. So, we do a lot of commercial work, and in the past, we were in a way criticized for it, or that we concentrate only on that, but we managed to prove that this is only also a means to an end, where you need to have a strong and sustainable studio with a sustainable team in which you can invest and develop, and then also have the resources to then invest in the creation of original content. Especially for short films, this is not something that makes money. To the contrary, it's finances that you have to invest, and we see this as an investment and as a way to create room for creativity and opportunities to experiment and learn new techniques and develop our in-house talent more. So. This is what we've been up to, let's say, for the last 12 years here in Cyprus. And as an owner, I'm happy to say that we gave the opportunity to a lot of young people in Cyprus to find a place to work and make a living and some people are still with us, some are not, but we still, just like with Dinos, that he used to be part of our team a few years back, but always we keep good relationships, and we like to see even the ones that want to move on, to see them progress, and happy to see that once, they used to be part of our team and they made their first steps here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's can I just add that it's great to see the company grow, because I was there a few years ago, and yes, it's really good to see all these projects coming out. So yeah, all the best with them. Yeah.
And I think it's worth mentioning that, well, despite the fact that the internet has made it possible to work internationally and globally and transcend the, geographical barriers of, living in a Mediterranean island, you still have to consider that Cyprus is a very small place, and it's a place that doesn't really have a film industry, let alone an animation industry. It doesn't have, universities and schools that teach it. So for somebody achieving, what Michalis has achieved with Zedem, I think it's quite remarkable, because we're not in Germany or in France, where you can start a studio and have an abundance of talent, coming out of universities. You don't have a local market that is, sustainable. So this is, quite groundbreaking for Cyprus, and it's also very, very encouraging, because if you go back 10 or 15 years, nothing like this existed. Yeah. So it's great to see the development and to see the growth, and also see that there is a lot of young people who, learn the craft and art of animation, and they have the opportunity here to work in their own country in a professional studio. So that's really good.
Yeah. Talking about opportunities and funding and sustainability, obviously participating in pitching festivals and pitching forums must have been really important in order to get projects off the ground. What's your experience going through that? What kind of opportunities did it create for you? And also, what would be the differences between, because you pitched both for a short film and a TV series, correct? So what would be the differences? What were the differences, the difficulties in between, the networking involved between doing those two?
I would like to say something on that, and then Michael, who's also been to both pitches, can elaborate. Mm-hmm. I think the first and foremost important aspect of participating in a pitch is the learning process that you have to go through, as a creator and a filmmaker and an animator, because it really puts you in the right path of questioning yourself on what it is that you want to do and how you want to make it. So you have to work a lot, you have to think about it a lot, you have to improve the script, you have to constantly, work on what you have on the pitch, in your story, your characters, mm-hmm. To be able to reach a level where you're ready to go and pitch it. So that process, which is a month-long process, is very important, so that the project itself and you working on it, you're matured and you're ready for it. And then you can you discover the strengths of the problem, but most importantly, the weaknesses, so that you can work on those. And then if the opportunity comes through and you find the money and the finances or the co-producers, then you know that what you're going to go out and produce is the best possible version of your story and of your film.
Mm-hmm. And it's also very important for young people to know that, to be able to get there, you have to also experience the process by either working in other studios or collaborating. But more importantly is to invest some time and even personal funds to go and watch other people pitch. Alexia and I have been traveling to pitching forums. I think Alexia, the first time we traveled together at the pitching forum was in 2013, from what I remember, in Thessaloniki.
Yes, it
but,
was amazing. Yeah.
And since then, we've been traveling. We watched many pitching forums, both in Cyprus, here locally. Not only personally, not only on the filmmaking side, but also in startup competitions and so forth. There are a lot of overlaps between the startup and ecosystem and the filmmaking animation industry. There's a lot of overlapping. So it's very important to go and watch other people pitch their projects. Both myself and Georgia, our writer here at Zedem, we went to Cartoon Forum in 2019 and watched 50 presentations, and then it gave us some insight on, okay, how do we do it well? Alexia and I traveled to Annecy 2 years ago, and we watched all the pitches, both for shorts, TV series, features, and when we were developing our pitch, we had all of these things in mind. So I think it's very important to first see how others do it, and make notes, mental notes, etc. So that's one thing. Then it's very important to have a very well developed project and really invest time in not only developing the script, but also your Bible, the look, for your characters to have depth. So all of these things are very important, because you're not going to get a lot of opportunities. And these things happen once a year, and it takes a lot of time to develop it. So when you're going to submit something, make sure that it's not a draft, so that you've really invest time and energy, and also collaborate with other people, exchange ideas with colleagues. Here we're lucky because we have a team, and we talk a lot internally, but people who are maybe doing this on their own, to not protect your baby, let's say, that much, and be afraid to share stuff with friends and colleagues. They're not going to steal your baby. They're just going to give you an outside perspective that at the end of the day is probably going to make your idea and your project better. So all of these things that relate to all of the things that you have to do before even submitting a project to a pitching competition are really, really important. One of the other things that we need to take into consideration is that developing a project, either being a short film or a TV series, costs a lot of money. It's time that you have to work, or salaries that you have to pay in order to develop the look, the scripts, all of that. And unfortunately, in Cyprus, for television, we don't have any funds that can help us to develop this content, this IP, this intellectual property that at the end of the day is going to bring investments to Cyprus. And that's where there's a big difference, both in terms of the content, but also in terms of the business aspect of it, between short films and TV series. Feature films are meant to make money in some cases maybe not, and especially when there's 100% finance from national funds. Short films cannot make money. It's almost impossible to make money from a short film. So you can get funds from national funds and through co-productions, but most of the times that no matter how much you can raise, it's not really going to be enough to make a profit. It can barely cover your expenses. So for a studio that is a business and needs to make profit, it's a bit of an oxymoron being interested in making short films. So why do you do it? We want to create short films for two reasons. One, is it's an investment to so that we can develop the skills of our talent, try new techniques, make mistakes on your own project and not on client projects, and learn from them and become better. So we see it as an investment, as a learning and development tool, but also as a stepping stone to and that's the second reason, and as a stepping stone to go further. So, for example, with Mesut, our aim is to create a feature-length quality, or let's say a TV standard quality in that short film, so that we can have that as a proof of concept for a different project that we want to do also later on, that it could hopefully also be profitable for the studio. But above everything else, at the end of the day, you want to make short films to tell stories and have a positive impact, on the community. So that's what short films are about. With TV series, yes, like with the makers, because of the nature of our studio, that we always want to create content that have a positive impact. So is the content of that that series structured in that way that it aims to not only be entertaining, but also create a positive impact on the young people in our communities. But when you're talking about a TV series, it needs to be a money-making business, and it's a big business, right? In order to be able to produce a series, you're talking a season of a TV series. You're looking at millions of euros, 5-6 million euros is like the average. Some series need less, or others you're talking about a lot more. We looked at pitches that were aiming for 25,000 euros per minute in terms of their budget, and of course, okay, you had the other ones that were much lower than that. Now, when as a studio from Cyprus, yes, the short film, maybe it's an easier way to go, but it doesn't really help to make your studio sustainable. The TV series is something that could really help to take our industry to the next level here in Cyprus, because it's going to create a continuity in terms of job creation, in terms of investments and cash flow coming from abroad. And I think this is something that is still completely new to our government here in Cyprus. And I think it's very important for us at the Cyprus Animation Association to really push for it and not look at so we can convince our government officials here in Cyprus that they really need to provide funds for developing this intellectual property in the form of TV series, because this is ultimately something that can bring investments to Cyprus and create jobs, etc., etc. So there are two completely worlds, and we're also still learning how to navigate them, and both in terms of the content, it's different, and the business aspect, but also in terms of the pitching, they're very different, and the people that you get to meet and the mentality of the people in those two different worlds are completely different. It's interesting. We're still learning, and hopefully we'll be able to find the means to complete these projects in the near future.
Yeah, can you tell us a bit more about pitching online and pitching in person, like being physically there? What was it like?
I think for us, being newcomers to the scene, the online pitching was much better because it relieved a level of stress. We were able to record it on video, and then play a pre-recorded video, and we were able, and we actually got very good comments for our pitch. Now, in terms of the networking aspect, in the beginning, I thought the online thing was going to be better, but at the end of the day, I think it wasn't. The physical presence at the festivals, at the forums, actually does make a difference, especially when you have a project. So yeah, one of the other things that I've learned from my experience in all the 3 pitching forums where we participated with a project, and especially, let's say, with the short film aspect of it, the short film project, is that you should be coming from a small country like Cyprus, and from an industry that is now taking really its first steps into these into this area. It's good to set the bar high and try to create collaborations with really good studios, etc. But I think it's more important to try and find the best possible match and to create the best synergies, and usually those come from studios that are pretty much on the same path, stage of the journey with you. In other words, if you're a small studio from Cyprus, unless you have an extraordinary project, there's chances of collaborating or with the best and largest studio in France, let's say, chances are going to be very, very, very minimal. You need to find people or studios that are a bit better from you, so that they can also help you become better, but they're not that far away, so that you're more compatible. And I think that's, in terms of networking, and because everyone's time is very precious and limited, and the same goes with your time, it's best to try and aim to create relationships and networkings and collaborations with people that are not much different from you, and that way you can develop together, progress in this area together. I think your chances of achieving that will be, will be better. Yeah. That's a personal perspective. It doesn't mean.
I think that nothing can actually replace the physical presence and participation in festivals and in pitching forums. It is convenient being able to do it online and not having to face the stage fright that a lot of people have. But actually doing that live in front of an audience is very rewarding and very useful. And it is not just the opportunities to talk to the right people or to talk to the right producers. It is also an opportunity to talk to your audience. And many times you're given the opportunity to interact with people, other directors or just, general audience that, watch your pitch and they give you feedback, on your story and what you're doing. And I think that is really, really important. So it is our, wish that, this pandemic will be over soon so that we can go back to normality as we know it. And, we want festivals to take place and have physical screenings and have events like that and workshops and pitching sessions that happen with, a public and an audience, because that's what it's all about. It's about communicating with people, with audience, with, other filmmakers. It's all part of the process. Otherwise it becomes very, lonely, and it's just a bit, you're all isolated, in your little world, trying to make the best of it and talk to people on a screen, which has its good things, but it's not the same.
There's always a lot lot of nodding in that comment. It's not.
Yeah. So, what would be your advice to people who want to pitch then, in terms of preparation? Like, what's the most important thing you would point out?
Alexia, you want to start, and then maybe I can go?
Well, it depends what you want to create. Like if you want to create a short film, I would say you have to be watching a lot of short films and what goes on in the rest of the world, and not be in your own bubble and think of your own little story. You need to know what is out there to know if your story has a place in that world, and how you want to make it. And then I would say, as Michael mentioned before, it's very, very important to watch other pitches, because if you don't, you really have no idea of, how it's done, how the structure is, how to present it, how not to, talk about things that are not so important. Like, how do you know what is important? How do you know how to approach it? You have to learn from other people's mistakes. You have to learn from those that do great pitches. You have to be familiar with the process. And it's important also to have some guidance, I believe, on that, to have some mentorship. Because especially if you are a first timer, it's really important to have insight and knowledge and feedback from people who've done it before, or who are professionals in the industry, because they can put you in the right path. You might have a very good idea and you might not have a clue on how to sell it and how to pitch it, and that's going to ruin you. I mean, we've seen pitches with fantastic stories that have great potential, and they had like a mediocre or a disappointing pitch. And it's a shame, because those projects were then, doomed and they didn't happen. And they were great stories with great potential. And then you have other stories that might not be so fascinating or so exciting, but because they were very well, thought through and very well presented and organized and had everything there, and they showed the potential of, yeah, we can make this happen. Those projects did happen. So I think that is really important.
On top of that, I would say, first of all, you shouldn't be afraid of failure. You're not gonna, make an award-winning film from your first attempt. Maybe, you would do it, but you have to try and do it and stay resilient. So that's one thing, not being afraid to try. Second, I would say, don't keep things just to yourself. Share it with your friends, especially with your friends in the industry, because it's only going to make your project better. And also, I would say, always, even though, especially with short films, it might be a personal vision in the beginning. Try and make it universal. Don't try and think based on an audience of one. You're not making a film for yourself. You're making a film for your audience, and that audience is not necessarily only in Cyprus. There have to be stories that people can relate with, all over the world, and that's the only way that your films could travel and get accepted to festivals, etc. So you need to keep all of these things in mind. More importantly, animation is not a one-man show or a one-person show. It needs to be a team effort. A good example is our film, The Parrot Lady. Even though my name was there as a director, it was truly a collaborative effort. Everyone had a lot of creative freedom. Sometimes people were complaining that they even had too much creative freedom. But it's very important to be open. Allow people to criticize it, constructively, so that you can then develop it and, make it better. So don't try and do everything on your own. Animation is something where a lot of specialized positions need to come together. But sometimes, obviously, because of the budgets, people have to do 2 or 3 different things. Mm-hmm. So you have to find the balance. In terms of the TV content, it's again, we heard a lot of let's say no's from people who watched the pitch. A lot of people found our project to be too educational, let's say, even though it's not really educational. But these are people's opinions, and not everyone is going to always tell you that your baby is beautiful. A lot of people are going to tell you that your baby is ugly, and you have to not take offense to that, and try and take look at the positive side of things, and take all those comments from all different types of perspectives, and see how you can develop it even further. An example is that even though our show was pitched under the title Get Making Cartoon Forum, it's we took the advice of our distributor, and now we change it to the makers. Our distributor in the US, who liked the project and gave us a contract to take it on board, showed the project to major broadcasters and streamers, etc. She got some feedback, and now we actually went back to the drawing board, and we're developing the characters. We're developing a new look for the series. So it's always important to receive feedback, let it marinate a little bit, and then see how you can apply that to your project. Even if your project, sometimes if it's a short film, even if it's in production already, we had to change stuff sometimes even halfway through, and I think at the end it made the project better. But at the end of the day, if you're a young animator, a young filmmaker starting out, the number one advice is not be afraid to take the leap. If you don't take the leap, you're not going to go anywhere.
And find your own
really great advice.
Voice. Yeah, you have to have your own voice as well. Like, don't try and copy the things you like. Authenticity is very, very important, and especially in animation, where the artistic, creative qualities of a project are so important. I think what really makes a project stand out, it's that creative value, the authenticity of the artist and of the animator, so that you can see the artist behind the work. Otherwise, it's just copying what is already out there. So believing in yourself and in your project, and working on it in a way that speaks from your heart, is very important.
It's really great advice, guys.
Yeah.
So to kind of close it off, where do you go from here? What are the future plans with your projects? What are the next steps?
Well, obviously with Mesut, we've already, we've talked about it. The next step is to try and secure the funding so we can go into production. Same for the TV series. Right now, it's, even though we're developing still the look, it's a bit of a waiting game at the moment to try and secure the funding for those 2 major projects. But at the same time, we're developing new projects that we cannot talk about yet, because we're aiming to submit them to pitching forums for this year and for next year. So it's very important from a producer's perspective and from a studio owner perspective to keep this pipeline going, you know. Even though you might have a project that's going to go into production, you also have to think what's going to come up next, and how can I find funding for the next project and the one after that, so that I can have a sustainable future and have this cash flow that's going to allow me to keep, you know, having these job positions and pay, you know, the salaries at the end of each month. You know, that's very important. So to do that, we, you know, obviously we also do commercial projects, you know, client projects, and one of the things that, you know, changed our perspective recently was the pandemic, you know. Especially through the first lockdown, a lot of things changed. We had to downsize the team in the beginning. Then we hired again some other people and grew the team again, but it changed the way that we work. So right now we have in-house, let's say, people that are even not based in Cyprus. We have people in the Netherlands, in Italy, in Spain, in Greece, working with us like full time, and not only in Cyprus. We utilize the work from home thing a lot, and our plans for the future is to try and develop that even more and use what used to be a threat and turn it into an opportunity, because the challenge that we had in Cyprus was that we only had a very small pool of talent to work with very limited resources. But now we opened it up, and one of the things that we want to do in the future is to see if we can grow that more, while at the same time try and do less projects but better projects. So this is one of our goals for the future, so that they're not so intensive, and try and focus more, and that's also going to help us to also have more focus on the original content. So we're trying to balance a lot of things, to be honest, but I think it's, you know, it's working out, and I'm quite optimistic, I have to say, for the future. Sorry, it was a long answer.
No, it's great.
I just realized sorry.
Yeah, no, that's it's really good to know that.
Very
I
exciting.
mean, out of the pandemic, you know, there's all these positives that came out of it. So it's good to know that.
Yeah, and you know, the pandemic actually gave you a lot of time to think, you know. Especially at the beginning, there was a lot of downtime, and you know, we utilized that downtime to invest in, especially in the original content stuff, you know. It was really, we had time to do, you know, to invest in training and development. You know, all the things that you always complained that you didn't have time to do, you know, we said, okay, let's do it. But we were able to do it because we managed to have a successful studio that was making a profit for a few years, so we didn't have to lay off people. And instead, you know, we said, okay, let's utilize that time and our resources to, you know, to do these courses, to learn stuff, to develop original content. So I think the perspective that you have on life and how you see, how you manage a studio, all of these things are important. So yeah, from a producer's perspective and from a studio owner perspective, it's very important to always try and overcome challenges and see what are the opportunities that might arise from it, you know?
Yeah, of course.
Thanks for your words of wisdom. I mean, and your good advice and the positivity. And yeah, I think
thank you for organizing this, guys.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Special guest. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you for your time, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.